Okay, what are the best countries out there for Muslim families? So for example, if you're a couple just starting out looking to, have children and you're worried about their future, or maybe you have children right now, young children, or they're going to school and you're worried about, the curriculum that's being taught and the environment. You're worried about the upbringing, and you're worried that you're going to lose your kids in terms of, like, their religion, their values, their identity. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the West specifically, right? So me myself, having been raised in Canada, and I've obviously over the years, I've had multiple encounters with people from the West, whether it's from UK, Australia, New Zealand, the US, right, Canada. So all of these countries, Muslims are facing issues. Muslim families, specifically those that have kids or that are thinking of having kids in a family. So they are worried for their children. They're worried for their upbringing. You know, Even in places like Sweden, Norway, there's stories that we hear that where kids are being asked, whether they, what they identify as, or are they being forced to be someone they're not, or things like that, looking to catch Muslims with these kind of circumstances. And a lot of these cases, not a lot of these cases, but in certain cases, the kids are even taken away from their parents. So this is something that is quite scary for a lot of people. This might not be the only reason. There's a lot of reasons why Muslims are thinking of leaving the West. And should Muslims leave the West? There's a really interesting clip that I just watched between a sheikh and the interviewer. So they were having a very good conversation. The sheikh was like, "Yeah, Muslims should leave the West by 2030. All Muslims should, like, or as many Muslims as we can." And the reason being is that Muslims living in the West are some of the most highly educated, highly skilled, at the highest level, in the world. So these Muslims that have left their countries, whether it's South Asia, or whether it's like Arabic countries, or like Egypt, Jordan, or whether it's African countries, right? Somalia, Ethiopia, Eritrea, whatever it may be, all of these people have left at certain times, whether it was their parents, their grandparents, their great grandparents. They had left their homeland, and now they've settled in the West. But when is it time to go back, or should we go back? Right, this is the question. So the sheikh points out that we should leave back, because there's no reason for us to stay here. I mean, we've come here, we've gotten what we needed. Now it's time to head back, or get what you need. Like, if you're studying, study, right? This is the one of the major reasons. Like, all the scholars agree on this, as pointed out by this sheikh, that mainly the only reason to be in a non-Muslim country is basically whether if you're going for education, right? So if you're going to study like university, and that's not available in your country, right? So that's if you're going to study, if you're going for medical treatment and so on, or if you're going for specifically for giving dawah, right? So that's, again, are we like giving dawah day to day? I don't know. Like, most of the Muslims are not. Like, I remember being in Toronto and going to Dundas Square, and there'd just be the same two guys, right? Or nobody there even, right? So now, alhamdulillah, there's a little bit of change. We do see some volunteers every now and then, from what I hear from my friends back in the city. So this is what I'm saying, that whether if you're giving dawah, if you're studying like specifically for masters and PhD, I have no problem with that, right? No problem. If you're a mature student, somebody who's not in bachelor's degree, I would say I wouldn't advise that. But for masters and PhD, then it's fine. Get your education. Maybe even a little experience is fine, obviously, right? You want to get some experience, learn the ways of how to run, how to be in that field, how to excel in that field. Do a few years experience, but definitely don't lose that connect, and don't forget your roots, right? So come back to where your roots are, and basically serve your country, right? You're the highest skilled person, and you're just gonna leave and live in another country. So this is what the Sheikh was saying. So now coming back to the topic, what are the best countries for Muslim families, right? So let's start off with Malaysia. It just comes to my mind directly, Malaysia, because it's just an amazing country, amazing, people, food, weather, infrastructure, cost of living is great. A lot of good things, a lot of good things. The only thing is, the problem is that when it comes to residency, the residency requirements are very high. So if you are, uh, if it's fine if you're just going there, for a year, or I think it's like they've got some nomad visa or something like that. If you can stay for a year, maximum 2 years, but over a certain number, over a longer period of time, it just gets very tricky, and there are like certain ways around it and so on. But it's not a very long term option. It's not an easy option. This is where I've had even several people, like, basically expats who have lived in Malaysia for tens of years, right? So I've had people reach out to me and be like, I've lived in Malaysia for this long, but they haven't given me citizenship, and they'll never give us citizenship. And even after, now that we've lived here 10 years, the laws are changing, and now we have to abide by the new principles, and we've got to renew our stuff, and it's just a headache, and we want to leave now. We want to go to a different country, right? So tell us, how do we proceed? So I've gotten these sorts of cases before. So Malaysia is great temporarily, I would say. And for the very, very long term, it can get tricky. Keep that in mind for your legal status. Next is, let's go to from Malaysia to UAE, which comes like, just I'm just going off countries would just come to mind directly, right? UAE, Dubai, right? Dubai, Sharjah, right? So these kinds of places. So UAE, of course, it's an easy option, definitely. In terms of residency, no problem. Anybody can just go get a business license, or if you have, let's say, $150,000, 100 and about 120, 150, 130, 140,000 dollars, you could just get residency for 2 years, right? So that is easy. You could easily go ahead and get residency, and then even you don't need that capital. You could just get residency from a business license, which is going to cost you like, maybe 4 grand, three to 4 grand a year, right? So which is in US dollars. So again, so that's pretty, I think, achievable for most people. So UAE is fine. The only thing with UAE is, of course, the weather. It's obviously, very hot. It's a desert, right? So it's kind of artificial in that sense. I've heard many people say that. So it's a lot of buildings, a lot of shopping, and those kinds of things. So from that perspective, if you are into nature and those kind of things, so you might not like Dubai that much. So, and of course, cost of living wise, I would say UAE is okay. The rents are very high. That's one of the major issue right now. So if you would definitely have to go to somewhere like in Dubai itself to live right now, for even for a one bedroom, like you'd be paying, I don't know, like you'd be paying like for 50,000. I think it's 50,000, or no, more than that per year. Per year, for 50,000 dirhams. So it's a crazy amount, which is the minimum, right? So if you want something nice, you gotta dish out like 200,000 dirhams, per year. So this is a lot of dough that you're putting down for rent alone. And then you would have to live in Sharjah. Even in Sharjah, if you're looking to get a nicer 3 bedroom, then you're still looking to put down 100,000, 120,000 dirhams, which is fine. But again, this is like, it's not the ideal situation, I would say. Rent wise, it has gone really high. Food wise, everything else is fine. The groceries and all that, those are okay. Medical is okay. You can just find places, and If you don't have full insurance, you can pay cash and so on. So in that aspect, but again, if it's like a very serious operation, then it might get expensive, right? So then you have to watch out for those types of cases. So if you have medical conditions, then you might have to fly out for doing those very high level stuff in Dubai. It's still going to be costly, because they don't have like public healthcare. It's private. It's all like private stuff, right? So healthcare is an issue. Now, UAE. So UAE is done, and now moving on to another place. Let's say, what comes to mind? Not Oman. Oman is again very similar, uh, a bit better in terms of the. It's not that artificial. It's more natural. The buildings and stuff like that. They're culture wise, their values, very nice people, much more slower pace of life, and I would say rents would be slightly better. I think, yeah, would be slightly better, definitely. I would say Oman, the rents would be between Saudi and Dubai. And then on the other side we have Qatar, where I've lived for a number of years, and Qatar, the rents are extremely high. Forget about Qatar unless you're working there and you get accommodation with your package. Then it's fine. But otherwise, forget it. So Qatar, Oman, Dubai, Bahrain, these are all quite on the similar list. But UAE, of course, is the easiest option when it comes to residency and that kind of thing, right? So that's there. Saudi is opening up real estate. Residency is still very hard, so you can invest possibly now. It's starting in Jan 2026. You can check out the video. I'll link it up above, where you can invest in Saudi real estate, starting from basically in about 10 days from now. So Jan 2026. So yeah, basically those are the countries in the Gulf, right? So now moving outside the Gulf, let's think of other places. Oh yeah, let's see, Morocco. You've got so other countries like Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia. Let's just focus on Morocco because it's the most popular. Morocco is a good country. It's pretty, I would say, Muslim friendly. It has a fair enough easy process for residency. You don't need to buy property, although property is attractively cheap, so you can get good apartments even less than $100,000, or for 100,000 you can get a very nice place, right? So you could probably get a two-bedroom, maybe even three-bedroom, right, for 120K, 115, 20K. So that's a good place, I would say, in terms of property, if you're looking for a cheap place and just start off with. In terms of infrastructure, Morocco, I would say, is okay. It's better than a lot of places, obviously, but it's still, I wouldn't say, not up to par like the West. You would still feel things are a little bit not exactly at that level. Obviously, like you're not gonna find anywhere exactly, but it's you'll still feel a few things are out of place and the bureaucracy and everything. But a good place, definitely. I would say consider Morocco. You've got it's Arabic speaking. You've got French as well. Certain places speak Spanish. So Morocco could be a good option. Moving on, you've got Egypt, right? On the same belt further down, you've got Egypt. Great for Islamic Arabic education. You've got of course a lot of scholars that are from Egypt, so you can for Islamic, for Quran, for that type of things. If you want to strengthen that in your family, I would say Egypt is definitely a good place. Again, infrastructure wise, it's even worse than Morocco. So we have to be, you have to basically temper your expectations when it comes to those types of things. Now, moving on is, I would say, where basically I'm based, Turkey right now. Turkey, in terms of infrastructure, it's pretty much you can expect like the West and even better, I would say, like in terms of safety wise. You could walk out at any time of the night. Even, obviously they've got even women that are walking out late at night. There's no issues. There's no issue of safety, right? Of course, still keep your common sense, but generally speaking, it's very safe. Of course, the safest would be Dubai, Qatar, those kinds of places because they have very strict controls and they've got very, surveillance, and everyone's being checked, and there's a small population. So Turkey is a bigger country, right? So to control that level, but even then, I would say it is quite safe. In terms of cost of living, it's more than the other countries I've mentioned, like Malaysia, Morocco, Egypt. It's more up to par than like similar to, I would say, Dubai, but rents are not that expensive. So rents are a lot cheaper. So for example, here you would say it's like you could get something, a three-bedroom for about $1,000, $1,500, a nice apartment in a very good area. So you could spend, I mean, again, very good area, meaning if you go to like prime real estate in Istanbul, yeah, it's not going to be $1,500. Like I'm saying, if you don't have to be right in the center, like, you're trying to get an apartment in New York Central Park right next to it, yeah, it's going to be expensive, right? So right on the Bosphorus, like, that's going to be expensive. But if you're getting in a, reasonable area, commutable to the center, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever, you could get something, like 10-year-old building, nice build, nice area, compound, everything, pool and all that. So you could get something like that in Istanbul, in Antalya, $1,500 US dollars, right? So that's something that's there. So cost of living wise, generally speaking, the thing is you can't rent here. That's one of the issues. In the other places I mentioned, you could rent apartments because of the residency. Here, residency means you need to buy a property. So this is only for people who can afford to buy at least a $200,000 apartment, or if they want to get citizenship, that's the perk of Turkey, that you can actually get citizenship. Whereas the other countries, you really can't have that. So here you can get citizenship by investing $400,000 in property. So that could be one, two, three, four, multiple properties, and you could get citizenship. You could have like one property for yourself, and then you could get rentals, and that would even be sufficient for you to get by, because rent is the main expense here. Once that's covered, the rest of the things you can survive with $1,000 on top, another maybe $1,500, right? If it's a let's say a family with one or two kids. Now, the here in terms of healthcare, schooling is basically like, pretty much like free, almost like public healthcare, right? There's a small payment of insurance, public health insurance, and it's the rest of it is pretty much free. If you go private, you do have option for private, which is good, because in case you wanted certain things that you want better treatments, let's say just better customer service, just better overall, because government places, obviously it's going to be just go go go. Of course, Turkey still has good level of healthcare. The quality is good, so the service may not be that good in terms of the quality of the customer service, but the quality, the care itself that they're providing is high. So their knowledge and their abilities are very high up there. So having said that, I would say Turkey is a very good option, very high up there. Saudi, on the other hand, let's look at Saudi. They don't really have residency. They have it, but it's like basically you have to spend $1 million a property to get residency, right? Or you need to have a job there and so on. So if you're just looking to just go and live there, then that's not. That's basically you need to spend $1 million. Or you need to have a business idea and establish a business, which again is the business expenses are costly. So you're looking at spending like $30,000 to set up your business basically, and then every year it's not a small cost. Again, yearly you're spending like pretty much that much, right? To keep the business, just the business like licensing and all that stuff. It's very intensive. Yeah, so they're trying to lower it. They're trying to make it better, but it's still very intensive. So you do need a solid business idea that generates a high amount of income, so that though covers those expenses and you're still making money on top. So that's not gonna happen for like brand new business owners. Like if you know the market and if you got a solid idea, you can bet on that and so on. Unless you're buying a franchise and stuff like that in Saudi, which I again, work with some opportunities, some franchises which are doing quite well in Saudi right now, Turkish franchises. That's something you can get into. But again, minimum investment in those two is about like $250,000, right? So you still need some capital to get going, and then that would move you forward. So basically, that is all the countries, pretty much I can think of. If I've missed any country, just put it in the comments. Maybe Indonesia. I didn't talk about Indonesia. Don't have that much information. I know it's cheap. But yeah, if there's any other country that I've missed, do drop it in the comments. Leave your suggestions for future videos. I'm still trying to, work out this channel. So do subscribe if you like this sort of content. It's just going to be more like raw style. I do have another channel, but this one is going to be more just me talking and just explaining things, just less businessy, more just, raw talk, one to one, basically, right? So just letting you guys know. Yeah, subscribe if you think it's worth looking into, and yeah, hopefully we'll come back and give me some ideas for new content. All right, cheers. Assalamu alaikum. Take care, and see you in the next video, hopefully, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.